Okay, well, welcome everyone. Um, Stephen Gilbar has been a friend of mine for many, many years, and he really needs no introduction because he is very well known in the Santa Barbara literary world, having written over 25 books about reading and our local literary history. I first met Stephen when I attended his Speaking of Stories, which was Santa Barbara's Page to Theater events, which he founded in 1996. And then I met him again when he moderated several panels and spoke about his books at the Santa Barbara Book and Author Festivals during the late 1990s into the early 2000s rather. And finally we became board members of the Friends of the Library Board of the Santa Barbara Public Library. And that's when he edited this book called Library Book, Writers on Libraries, a celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Santa Barbara Central Library, which is a great book. His latest book is the Little Book of Montecito Actors, mini biographies, over 100?
Yes.
Of actors with connections to Montecito, California. And that's what he's going to talk to us about tonight, which is just wonderful. And this book follows his 2022 book, the Little Book of Montecito Writers. What I really appreciate about Stephen's work is the deep dive he does into history. And I'm a history fan myself, and so when he writes, he really deep dives into that. And I think you will too when you hear about his mini biographies. Here you go, Stephen.
Thank you. Well, I'm coming up for air. I don't want to get the bends for my deep dive. Actually, I really love the diving. Doing the research is what I really like about these books. When you find some nugget from history and then you recover it and explain it. Actually, I have a lot of difficulty writing. I'm not really good. I used to be a lawyer in a former life, and my writing is sort of like brief. It's not brief, unfortunately. Lawyers, I don't know when to stop. But so most of when they say 25 books, I didn't write them all. Most of them are anthologies and collections. So one can amass a oeuvre of 25 books in a very short time, but that's what you're doing. You have to write it. There are some novelists over their career that have only written 4 or 5 books, and those books are monumental, and they take years in the making. Now this book, I first did this book about writers in Montecito because I became aware of how many there were. I was really surprised. And after doing that, I'm retired, and you know, a man and a woman, you need a project. Got to keep going. That's one of the secrets of successful aging, I'm told. So there's always stories about actors. And I was really much more interested in the classic actors who lived here, like, you know, Robert Mitchum or Richard Widmark, Lloyd, people like that, and Jane Russell and Lena Horne. There's so many of them. But it's funny, when I've talked to younger people about the book and I mention these names, they've never heard of them. So, and I also decided I wasn't that interested in sort of the new people. And so I cut off, you had to be born before 1975. So, you know, the Gen Xers, they didn't get in there. And still, even with that, there's almost 100. And I'm sure I forgot some.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah? Well, if anybody knows who I forgot, I want to know.
Greta Garbo.
She's in it.
She's in here.
Yeah.
She's not on this. She's not in this list.
Well, I only put a few people on the back, 'cause I couldn't put 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you're forgiven.
Thank you.
Troublemaker over here.
Yeah.
She is.
There's always one.
One thing I wanted to do about the book was, I didn't want it to be all biography, because you can look up these people on Wikipedia or IMBD, or you know already. So I sort of, in case you don't know who they are, there's about a paragraph. The rest of it is, I try to get their connection to Santa Barbara. When they came here, and you know, the thing about Montecito is, there are no poor actors living there. Montecito is so expensive that they're extremely successful, mega successful. As you know, the Ellens and the Oprahs and all of them, these $40 million houses. And they seem to have what's called a portfolio of homes. So they have many homes, and they'll have one in Montecito, which they occasionally stay in. And so, but you know, they're in the book. Most of the people are not full-time residents. And I would say most of the people in the book are not living, because I was more interested in some of the older people. And also, I sort of, in doing this excavation, found a whole bunch of silent film stars that are forgotten. They retired here after they were famous. And going back into their lives, they were fascinating. I mean, they were huge stars in their day. And incredible marriages and all of that. And then they came here in their dotage and lived out in obscurity, you know, as I'm sure Betsy Green would know about. And I just had fun with the book, but now I'm launching it out to the world, so anybody interested. And some people ask me, it's not really about celebrities, it's about actors. And a lot of the people in the book are not movie stars, but they're professional actors. And so it's even voice actors, because they're all part of Tinseltown. I mean, they make, you know, there's actors, but we also, by the way, Montecito has an amazing amount of directors, producers, screenwriters, fashion, in fashion and costume designers, some of the biggest lived here. So, yeah, it's amazing. So, I think that there are more actors per capita in Montecito than anywhere in the world.
Really?
Because it only has 8,000 people, according to the, so, you know, obviously there are more actors in New York or LA, but not per capita. A dubious distinction. So, I shall say no more. Brevity is the soul of wit, I've heard. Almost impossible for lawyers. That was the second part of the quotation. Any questions? Anybody? Anything? Shoot. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Betsy.
What was your biggest surprise? A person that you were most surprised?
Oh, wow.
Or next biggest?
No, I'm trying to think about, well, I was always surprised about who lived here. I didn't know about Lena Horne. That's a really good story.
Oh, yeah.
And, and also, actually, one of the most interesting people was Bradford Dillman. I don't know if you remember Brad Dillman. You remember the movie Compulsion? One of the great movies. He
Yeah.
was like so horrible, but he had a long career, and he was the first actor from LA's West Side to move up here. And he bought the George Washington Smith estate at the very top of Hot Springs Road. But the best thing he ever did in his life, he married Susie Parker,
Oh.
the great model of the generation.
Yeah.
And she retired, and they lived up there, and they raised a family. They had between them like 6 children. And he continued to act, and he wrote books, and you know, there's a lot of stories like that. And I try to include, by the way, photographs of the actors with their spouses when they lived here, rather than the stock photos that you know. So some of them are unusual. Also, I did discover a couple actors you might know, Betsy, like Natalie Moorhead, and yeah, I never even heard of, but they were big. It's only the movies got smaller. So, yeah. Jeff, I'm sorry,
That's
go ahead.
okay.
What is your, I did read the book already, and you talked.
That's just now right.
You just
Okay.
now just read it. You actually allude to Charlie Chaplin, which I found interesting because I thought he had more of a connection to. Montecito
No,
than
it's
he
funny.
does.
Well, you know, that's one of the great myths of Montecito, that the Montecito Inn was founded by Charlie Chaplin and Fatty Arbuckle, so they'd have a place to go and hang out. And you know, they used to have a picture of Charlie on, but in their website it still says Charlie Chaplin. And in fact, he had nothing to do with it. And I don't know how that happened. Oh, it was actually built by a couple of guys from Montecito. I mean, had nothing to do with that. However, there is a connection because when he was in his late 50s, he married the 18-year-old daughter of dramatist Eugene O'Neill. And they got married in Carpinteria and honeymooned in Montecito. They didn't stay at the Montecito Inn. They stayed at somebody's house over on Middle Road or something. So, you know, well, the point of the fact is everybody who lives in Hollywood, Greater Hollywood, has come to Santa Barbara one time or another. I mean, there's the San Ysidro Ranch, the Biltmore, I mean, the old Miramar, they know it. But the people that started living here was new because you couldn't get to the studios that fast. People needed to live, well, there's two reasons. There used to be a rule that you had to be 2 hours away from the studio. I guess Montecito fit into that, but they usually preferred Palm Springs. And the reason is they could depend on the weather in Palm Springs as being warm. Here, you know, May, June, you don't know. And in the wintertime, they would prefer to go to Sun Valley, which was a big resort for Hollywood people because you could ski. You can't do that here. So. But then lately, people have realized this is a great place to live, and you can. And the other thing is, Gene Hackman lived here, and people asked him, "You're so far from the studios. Isn't that a real problem?" And he said, "Of all the movies I've ever made, only 2 were ever shot at a studio in Hollywood. They're always on location somewhere else, so it really doesn't matter. It's not like you have to drive in every day." And by the way, those that do drive in every day, they also have a house in Beverly Hills, so they can stay there. So it's not a problem.
Yeah. Interesting. It's gonna be fun to read this.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
It's always fun to
Read
read
it
another
and report
person.
back.
Yes.
I will.
Okay. If you know anybody that, if you find any errors or somebody that's missing, I'd love to hear about it.
We get 25 cents.
You do. You get acknowledgement.
Okay.
What about your personal interest in film growing up?
I wasn't as they say today, a cineast. I mean, I went to the movies. I went to, you know, mainly just the same movies everybody else went to, and then I'm interested in cinema, as they say, but I'm not a cinephile. I'm sort of interested in history of LA and that Hollywood. Oh, the old Hollywood. Actually, I just saw Cass Warner's documentary about the Warner Brothers. I just watched it last night, and that's really interests me, how that whole business started, you know, and what it's become. But you know, with now with streaming, there's just all the movies you want. To on demand, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
I have one question. Go ahead. How did you find this picture of Carol Burnett? And has she seen this yet?
No, she may never see it.
That's probably true.
But don't show it to her.
I might
You know,
let her
Marilyn
know.
Gilbert, the great opera singer. You went to UCLA with Carol.
Oh, yeah,
Burnett,
we
right?
sang together
Yeah.
at UCLA. That was great fun. And Anna and the King of Siam. She was Anna, I was Pepkin. But that picture of her is not one she would have approved, I can tell you that.
Well, you know, I got none of the actors in there know about them being in there. I mean, it's interesting what you said about Christopher Lloyd, but they may never. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's a funny book. It's only of interest mainly to people that live around here, and it's only sold in a few bookshops in the world. So it's, because, you know, I published it myself, and so it's not like it's gonna be like a Knopf book or Random House and be in bookstores all over the world. It was really a labor of love. It's shamelessly non-commercial. I will donate all my profits, but there won't be any. Doesn't matter.
So you didn't need to get permission to talk about them?
Oh,
Well, they all
absolutely
died and
not.
so on,
No.
No, public personalities.
Yeah.
I can do anything as long as I'm not really, yeah, anything.
Well,
Just about, the New York Times versus Sullivan, we can basically do anything except it's libelous.
yeah.
But nobody's gonna sue me, because this doesn't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world.
You know who likes the book are people from out of town. We'll have it faced
Yes.
out there,
Yes.
and they were really interested.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny, because I did have the book at the honor market
Yeah.
in Montecito, and they sold out, because people from LA come up on the weekends and they say, oh, movie stars, Montecito, gotta get the book, you know, so it's that kind of thing.
You know, Montecito, because of Harry and Meghan and the royals and all
Yes.
that brouhaha, is actually a known brand in the UK in some places. There are people who would snap this up like a Pez. Because they're just huge fans.
That's
of
high
it.
praise indeed.
Pez.
Put the head back in the candy from that.
Oh.
Those little dispensers.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're right. But,
There are places where Montecito's like, oh, anything Montecito is like interesting to them.
the book is on Amazon, so
Oh, you
they'd
did?
have to find it, because I'm not putting ads in the London newspapers or anything.
No, right.
They would stumble upon it.
Yep.
Steve, you didn't let me blot that part out about him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
please.
just kidding.
No, I whispered. Yeah.
Okay.
Steven, do you have a favorite actor?
If
You mean a real act in my
Yeah,
life?
and a favorite movie,
Yeah, if you could meet
Oh, God,
anybody
one
from the book.
movie? Oh, that's
Yeah.
impossible.
or two.
Well, the funniest movie, my favorite funny movie is Some Like It Hot.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon.
Yeah,
Tony Curtis.
Tony Curtis did
yeah.
not live
Yeah.
here. That's another book.
yeah.
I could do another book of all the movie stars that didn't live here. That might be a thinner book.
Yeah, you said you were finished, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
So why Montecito and not Santa Barbara?
Oh, because that would be epic in size.
So
Because
there
not
would be-
only Santa Barbara, but if you talk, I think there are probably more actors in the Santa Ynez Valley than there are here. And there's also, even when you go north, up towar's Carpinteria,
That's
there's
a real
Rincon Point, there's a hell of a lot of actors. I didn't really want to do that. So, I mean, I try to keep it small. You know, but if somebody else wants to take the torch and do it, go right ahead.
And have you heard from the Duke and Duchess yet? Have they got their copy?
Well, you know, actually, she falls into post-1975. I would have put her in as Meghan Markle, as Meghan Markle, but she's too young. So
Which is-
I
She'll
could,
be disappointed, Steve. She'll be very
should
disappointed.
have been born earlier.
So have you
I know.
encountered any of
Pardon me?
these? Have you encountered any of these actors in your book personally?
Well, they certainly haven't encountered me, because
Yeah.
nobody knows what I look like. In fact, that picture you have, it's
Yeah.
not really me. It's horrible, nobody would identify me with that.
It's one of my
No,
favorites.
I
of all
don't really
them.
go, I don't hang out in those circles.
Yeah.
I live in Baja, Montecito. I always, no, I always hate to say I live in Montecito. I'm one of the people who always say I live in Santa Barbara, because it gives the wrong impression.
Mm.
And so in Baja, which is from the ocean up to Virginia Road, Danielson, maybe up about 100 yards. That's where the common folk live, the villagers. So, but I do have the advantage of a Butterfly Beach and all of that. I don't swing with the other people. I'd love to go to their parties and everything, but I'm not on the list.
Okay.
They have parties anymore.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Steve Gilbar, thank you very much for coming
It
in.
was my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.